Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast, coming to you from beautiful Miami, Florida. Today is Monday, March 12th, 2018. Today I'm going to recap Saturday night and Sunday's championship games in college basketball, the conference championship games. I'll look at the bracket. I'm not picking the games yet. I'll explain that situation later on in the podcast. I'll recap the NBA weekend and the NBA slate for tonight. I'll pick the ESPN doubleheader. One big free agent signing and one somewhat major free agent signing. Two big NFL trades, NFL free agency predictions. And let's get to it. Saturday night, Texas Southern defeated Arkansas's Pine Bluff by a score of 84-69 in the SWAC final to reach the big dance. Trayvon Reed put up 17 in the win, and Trayvon Harper put up 21 in defeat. Actually, no, Trayvon Reed put up 17 in the win. Kansas defeated West Virginia 81-70 in the Big 12 final. Big comeback for Kansas. Devontae Graham put up 18. Malik Newman put up 20 in the win. Daxter Miles put up 25 in defeat. San Diego State defeated New Mexico by a score of 82-75 in the Mountain West title game to punch a ticket to the big dance. Trey Kell put up 28 in the win, and Antonio Jackson put up 17 in defeat. Big East final, great game. Villanova defeated Providence 76-66 in overtime. Give Providence credit for even forcing overtime against perhaps the Big East's best team. Jalen Brunson put up 31 in the win. Alpha Diallo put up 22 in defeat. Buffalo defeated Toledo 76-66 in the Mid-American final to reach the big dance. Wes Clark put up 26 in the win, and Jaylon Sanford put up 19 in defeat. Montana defeated Eastern Washington 82-65 on the Big Sky final to reach the big dance. Michael Aguni put up 21 in the win, and Jacob Davison put up 26 in defeat. Virginia defeated North Carolina by a score of 71-63 in the ACC final. North Carolina hung around in this one, but Virginia pulled away late. Kyle Guy put up 16 in the win, and Luke May put up 20 in defeat. Marshall defeated Western Kentucky 67-66 in the CUSA final to make the big dance. Marshall ends a 31-year drought. John Elmore led the way with 27 points, and Justin Johnson put up 21 in defeat for Western Kentucky. Stephen F. Austin defeated Southeastern Louisiana in the Southland final 59-55 to reach the big dance. TJ Holyfield put up 13 in the win. Joshua Fillmore put up 14 in defeat. Arizona defeated USC by a score of 75-61 in the Pac-12 final. Arizona gets the auto bid. DeAndre Ayton put up 32 in the win, and Nick Rakovic put up 13 in defeat. New Mexico State defeated Grand Canyon by a score of 72-58 in the Western Athletic Conference Championship game. Zach Lofton put up 21 in the win, and Alessandro Lever put up 20 in defeat. Last but not least, Cal State Fullerton defeated UC Irvine by a score of 71-55 in the Big West final. Kyle Allman put up 26 in the win, and Evan Leonard put up 20 in defeat. And Sunday, you had 5 games. Penn defeated Harvard by a score of 68-65 in the Ivy League final. Darnell Foreman put up 19 in the win. Chris Lewis put up 16 in defeat. Kentucky defeated Tennessee by a score of 77-72 in the SEC final. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander put up 29 in the win, and Admiral Schoenfield put up 22 in defeat. Davidson defeated Rhode Island 58-57 to win the Atlantic 10 auto bid. Kellen Grady put up 17 points in the win. E.C. Matthews put up 20 in defeat. And two more. Georgia State defeated UT Arlington by a score of 74-51 in the Sun Belt final. to go to the big dance. It's the third time in 4 years, or second time in 4 years that they go to the big dance. Georgia State. DeMarcus Simmons put up 27 in the win, and Johnny Hamilton put up 23 in defeat. And last but not least, Cincinnati defeated Houston by a score of 56-55 in the AAC title game. Give the Cougars credit for hanging around in this game. Gary Clark put up 20 points and 12 rebounds in the win, and Rob Gray put up 17 in defeat. And now I'm going to go over the field. And what am I going to do with my picks? Tomorrow morning, I'm going to come out with a podcast, and it's going to be strictly tournament predictions, round by round. And it should be fun. And I expect to get a lot of views on that podcast as well. All right, starting with at the top of the South region. Number 1, Virginia. Number 2, Cincinnati. Number 3, Tennessee. Number 4, Arizona. Number 5, Kentucky. Number 6, Miami. Number 7, Nevada. Number 8, Creighton. Number 9, Kansas State. Number 10, Texas. Number 11, Loyola Chicago. Number 12, Davidson. Number 13, Buffalo. Number 14, Wright State. Number 15, Georgia State. And number 16, UMBC. My takeaway from this bracket is that I'm surprised that Loyola Chicago was put in the at-large side instead of the auto bid side. Another takeaway is, how the heck is Nevada a 7 seed? They should, you can make a case, not belong in the tournament. They lost and or got destroyed in the semifinals in the Mountain West. They should at least be in the play-in game. Like, I think that's ridiculous that they're in. And another takeaway is that I think Arizona was underseeded. Kentucky arguably overseeded, according to their resume. And I think that win at West Virginia, if they don't win that game, they're a 6 or a 7 seed. In Davidson, they probably belong on the 12 line, but they have a tough draw against Kentucky, and Kentucky gets a tough draw for themselves here with Davidson, who has a great offensive system, a great head coach, which is a pretty good program, Steph Curry's alma mater. And another takeaway here is that the Buffalo Bulls, I think, should have been a 12 seed, not a 13. And part of me wishes that they got a weaker 4 seed to play in the round of 64. And I mentioned Loyola Chicago. Wright State's overseeded. Georgia State's in the right spot, I think. Although you can make a case they should be a little higher. UMBC's in the right spot, considering it took them a buzzer beater to make it into this spot. And Virginia's obviously a very deserving number 1 overall seed. In the top right corner of the bracket is the Eastern region. Number 1, Villanova. Number 2, Purdue. Number 3, Texas Tech. Number 4, Wichita State. Number 5, West Virginia. Number 6, Florida. Number 7, Arkansas. Number 8, Virginia Tech. Number 9, Alabama. Number 10, Butler. Number 11 is a play-in game between St. Bonaventure and UCLA. 12, Murray State. 13, Marshall. 14, Stephen F. Austin. 15, Cal State Fullerton. 16, play-in game, LIU Brooklyn and Radford. I think Villanova got a nice quadrant and an easier path to the Sweet 16. A possible West Virginia Wichita State in the second round would be fun. And back to Alabama for a second. Their resume would tell you that they were overseeded because they have so many losses. But here they are in the 8-9 game against a team that I felt was bound for the 8-9 team in Virginia, the 8-9 game in Virginia Tech. Florida got a right seed at 6, even though they've spuddled down the stretch. Texas Tech, I felt, was overseeded. Stephen F. Austin, I think, is underseeded because this is not the Stephen F. Austin of 2 years ago that knocked off West Virginia, nearly knocked off Notre Dame, and won a tournament game in 2014 as well. This isn't the Stephen F. Austin of old. I think Butler's underseeded. They are better than a 10, and they're a big game team. Arkansas probably should be in an 8-9 game. Purdue's a rightful 2 seed. Cal State Fullerton should be on the 16 line. And on the flip side, Radford, who's in the 16 seed playing game, should be a 15 or even a 14, because I think they're better than a 16. And LIU Brooklyn was bound for that playing game. And on the bottom right of the bracket is the Midwest region. Number 1, Kansas. Number 2, Duke. Number 3, Michigan State. Number 4, Auburn. Number 5, Clemson. Number 6, TCU. Number 7, Rhode Island. Number 8, Seton Hall. Number 9, NC State. Number 10, Oklahoma. Number 11, playing game between Arizona State and Syracuse. Number 12, New Mexico State. Number 13, Charleston. Number 14, Bucknell. Number 15, Iona. And number 16, Penn. Takeaways here. Kansas deserves a 1 seed. They won the Big 12 regular season outright title yet again, and they won the Big 12 tournament, so they are very deserving of the number 3 overall seed and the 1 seed of the Midwest. Penn's better than a 16. They probably should have been on the 15 line, and the team that did get on the 15 line should be on the 15 line. That's Iona. Duke's in the right spot as a 2 seed. Michigan State, you could argue, should be a 2 seed. And the team I'm going to talk about in the next quadrant, you can make a case should be on the 3 seed, because a team that Michigan State beat head-to-head that I'm going to mention in a couple minutes from the West region is a 2 seed, and Michigan State is a 3 seed. Rhode Island, I think they're in the right spot. I was afraid that the committee was going to underseed them after they lost to Davidson, but that's okay. Oklahoma's in the right spot as a 10. That should be a fun game. Like I said, I'm talking about games and predictions on the next podcast. Bucknell's overseeded as a 14. TCU, perhaps the right spot for them, although you could talk me into them being a 7. Clemson's in the right spot. Auburn's in the right spot. I think NC State is a little overseeded. Seton Hall's probably in the right spot. Although you could make a case they're overseeded as well. Arizona State is probably underseeded because their conference, or not their non-conference schedule, they were fantastic. They knocked off Kansas and Xavier, and they spuddled in the Pac-12 play, and here they are now in the playing game against a team that does not belong in the field in the Syracuse Orange. I think that was not as outrageous as them putting Tulsa in the playing game in 2016, but this is pretty outrageous. I guess winning at Miami and at Louisville, although Louisville's not in the field, I'll get to them in a couple minutes. I guess that gets them in, and beating Clemson at home. I guess that gets Syracuse in. Maybe if they defeated North Carolina at home a couple weeks ago, maybe I would have considered them on my list, but no. They were not on my 68 list, and here they are in the play-in game. And that said, good for Jim Boeheim and good for Syracuse, but let's be honest, they belong in the NIT, not the big dance. And I mentioned Louisville. I'll talk about the snub teams after I preview the West, which I'm going to do right now. Number 1, Xavier. Number 2, North Carolina. Number 3, Michigan. Number 4, Gonzaga. Number 5, Ohio State. Number 6, Houston. Number 7, Texas A&M. Number 8, Missouri. Number 9, Florida State. Number 10, Providence. Number 11, San Diego State. Number 12, South Dakota State. Number 13, UNC Greensboro. Number 14, Montana. 15, Lipscomb. 16, playing game between NC Central and Texas Southern. All right. Xavier is the rightful 1 seed in the West, even though they lost in the conference semifinals against Butler. But my case for Xavier, for them to belong here, is that they won the Big East title outright. And that alone, in a league with Villanova, should be able to put Xavier on the 1 line. And they have some excellent wins on their resume, as well as the other 1 seeds that are on the 1 line. And Xavier won at Cincinnati, although they did lose to Arizona State, and I mentioned that game for an Arizona State perspective. But yeah, Xavier deserves to be on the 1 line. NC Central, Texas Southern seems right for the playing game. Missouri's in the right spot. Florida State probably in the right spot too. Ohio State, I think, is underseeded. And South Dakota State could be a tough matchup for them because that's a perfect 12 seed that can knock off a 5 seed. Gonzaga on the 4 line. I think Gonzaga's underseeded. I think Gonzaga should have been on the 3 line for winning yet another West Coast Conference championship and the tournament championship as well. So they belonged on the 3 line. They had some good wins on their resume. I think they're underseeded. Houston, right spot. UNC Greensboro is overseeded. They're not a 13. They should have been a 14 or at worst a 14. To me, that's not a good 13. I mentioned Houston. San Diego State, I'm surprised they put them in the at-large field a little bit. They probably were better built for a 12 seed, but it's okay. There are some bid stealers this year, so give San Diego State credit for stealing a bid. They probably should have stolen Nevada's bid instead of, or even Syracuse's bid over some teams I'm going to mention in a couple minutes. Michigan on the 3 line, deserving. I wasn't sure if they were going to get it or not because they weren't really that great before conference play. Had some weird losses on their schedule. I guess winning the Big Ten tournament put them on the 3 line, so good for the Wolverines. Montana, in the right spot in my opinion. Texas A&M, probably a 7 seed because of all those great non-con wins over the likes of West Virginia, and I believe they beat somebody else in conference play or in non-conference play too. Although I know they lost to Kansas and Arizona, and those wins look really, really good on their resumes. And Providence is in the right spot after making it to the Big East final and almost beating Villanova. I think that should be deserving of a 10 seed. North Carolina is a team I was mentioning linking to Michigan State, how they're the 10-loss 2 seed, and Michigan State is a 4-loss 3 seed, and Michigan State defeated North Carolina, and North Carolina is a 2 seed, and Michigan State's a 3 seed. The reason why that's not the case is because North Carolina has more great wins than Michigan State. Although North Carolina arguably has the worst loss between those 2 teams in losing to Wofford. In Lipscomb, solid 15. I thought they'd be the team that's going to be the quote-unquote best 16 seed, but I was wrong. The best 16 seed on the board is Penn, but Lipscomb is on the 15 line. Teams that got snubbed. I mentioned Louisville. I think they got snubbed, but I know why they got snubbed. It's because they didn't have any great non-con wins. They did lose to Seton Hall. They lost to Kentucky. So they pretty much blew their opportunities. They get some nice wins in conference, such as beating Miami and Virginia Tech and in beating Florida State in the ACC tournament. But again, in conference play, even they blew big opportunities as well, such as they played North Carolina and they played Duke and they played Virginia. I think that Virginia game was an absolute killer for them. If they had knocked off Virginia and not blown that 5-point lead with 4 seconds left. They win that game, and they are in the tournament. They are probably in Syracuse's position, and Syracuse is in the NIT. So Louisville choking against Virginia last week or the week before. Yeah, it was about 10 days ago. Then that happened. Was what helped propel Syracuse into the tournament, other than the fact that Syracuse did defeat Louisville head-to-head at the Yum Center as well. Baylor, I think, got snubbed because they went on a great run at the end of the season, defeating a bunch of big-name schools from within their conference, such as Kansas and Oklahoma and Texas Tech. But those 2 losses to West Virginia, I think, killed them, especially the one in the Big 12 tournament. Had they beaten West Virginia in the Big 12 tournament, I think they're in. And West Virginia's probably seed line lower than they are. And I just mentioned a couple minutes ago that West Virginia, I felt, was underseeded by the committee. But I understand why they did that, because they lost a couple weird games to Oklahoma State and TCU, and then they blew leads against Kansas 3 times. They blew a lead to Kentucky at home back at the end of January. But back to Baylor. They lost those 2 games to West Virginia, which I think hurt them in the big picture. Another team I felt was snubbed was the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame, but not for the reasons that people would think. I think they were snubbed because they missed some opportunities, but they missed them, which cost them at a price, which was not having Bonzie Colson for most of the season. I get why they're not in the tournament. It's because they lost some weird games. They've had some bad losses with Bonzie Colson, like to Ball State. So that's another reason why. But let's be honest, if Dayton or Davidson doesn't defeat Rhode Island, Notre Dame's in that play-in game against, I don't even know who they play, definitely not Syracuse, but maybe they do play Arizona State and Syracuse plays somebody else in the other play-in game. Or Syracuse would play UCLA, or UCLA would play Bonaventure, or Bonaventure would play Syracuse again. But yeah, Notre Dame, I felt, was snubbed because of the loss of Bonzie Colson for the middle of the season. It isn't fair when you lose a good player, and they're a good team with Bonzie Colson, so that's Notre Dame's case. I don't think St. Mary's got snubbed because they did a terrible job scheduling outside of conference, as they did 2 years ago as well. They were a 5-loss team 2 years ago and got snubbed from the tournament as well, so I'm not surprised by that one. And I think the team that should be upset and should be really, really, really upset is the USC Trojans. They belonged in the field. And they finished second in the Pac-12, and somehow they didn't make the tournament. And they are somehow going to the NIT, which is ridiculous. All right. NBA tonight, some interesting games. And like I said, I'm going to predict the tournament tomorrow. NBA slate for tonight. Games are underway. Spurs, Rockets, Bucks, Grizzlies, Kings, Thunder, and Heat. Trailblazers, only 4 games tonight. 2 of them I'm going to pick. Spurs at the Rockets. I think Houston wins this by double digits. Kawhi's still out. James Harden and Chris Paul lead the way as Harden continues to build his case for NBA MVP. Heat Trailblazers is fun. I think Portland's going to win that game. Damian Lillard is making himself a case for the MVP, and I think they win this game by double digits. And Baseball. Two big signings. The Phillies signing Jake Arrieta. Great signing for them. He'll be their ace in their rotation to go with Aaron Nola. And he'll help them try to be competitive this season, although I don't think the Phillies are a playoff team, but this certainly makes them better. And today the Yankees signed Neil Walker. Interesting move by the Yankees. I think they did this because they feel that Gleyber Torres isn't ready, coming off his Tommy John surgery from a year ago, and Tyler Wade, who was the favorite to land the second base job, got injured in a spring training game a few weeks ago, and maybe his injury is worse than we thought, although Wade is playing in tonight's spring game against the Twins. Two big NFL moves from the weekend. Richard Sherman signs with the San Francisco 49ers, 3 years, $39 million. And wow, I think I called that on my podcast a few weeks ago, which is crazy. I think I made a joke and said, watch him sign with the Niners to stick it to Seattle. I definitely want to look back at that podcast on the day where Richard Sherman was cut and see if I really said that, because I think I did say that. And that's a great signing for the Niners. He's a veteran that's going to help in their secondary. And the Niners have a ton of cap space, and they're going to make even more moves this offseason as they look to make themselves better and perhaps make the playoffs in 2018. Big trade in the NFL today. Cody Glenn gets traded from the Buffalo Bills to the Cincinnati Bengals. And in the trade, the team swapped their first-round picks. I think it's a great deal for Buffalo because they have the 12th pick now, and they can move up and package the 12th pick with something else and go move up and get a quarterback. So it's excellent. And on the flip side for Cincinnati, I think giving up the 12th pick for Cody Glenn was a steep price, but it's worth it because he improved their offensive line, which was a disaster a year ago. NFL free agency begins Wednesday at 4 o'clock Eastern Time. I'm going to go team by team and list off my predictions for each team. The Buffalo Bills will sign wide receiver Paul Richardson and quarterback Sam Bradford. I really think that the Bills are going to sign Bradford as like a backup option to whoever they could potentially draft, and they have a need at wide receiver, so Richardson would be a nice fit. The Miami Dolphins, I think, trade for Philadelphia's Vinny Curry for their defensive line, which they are going to release Ndamukong Suh within the next couple hours or so. So a trade for Vinny Curry would make sense to improve that area, and they have traded with the Eagles a lot in the past. The Patriots, I have them signing Tamba Hali, who was released by the Chiefs today, and I think they'll re-sign Nate Solder, who is a stable offensive lineman who held that offensive line together in New England. The New York Jets, I think, will sign Weston Richburg and A.J. McCarron. I think McCarron will go there as a backup quarterback, as I think they're going to, not to spoil any predictions, draft the quarterback with the 6th pick in the draft potentially, or even move up, because I do not have them signing Kirk Cousins. And Richburg would be a great addition to their offensive line as they look to improve that area of their team, as well as after they've released Nick Mangold, among others on their offensive line. The Baltimore Ravens, I have signing Allen Robinson, and the Ravens need an upgrade at wide receiver, and they released Jeremy Maclin to clear cap room, so Robinson would make sense. Cincinnati Bengals, I have them re-signing Tyler Eifert, who's an excellent tight end, and they had a nice, after Eifert got hurt, their other tight end did a nice job stepping up for them. The Cleveland Browns, I have them signing Nigel Bradham to improve their linebacking core. Steelers, I think Dallas releases Orlando Scandrick as he requested a release, and I think Pittsburgh's the team that signs him to improve their secondary. The Houston Texans, I have signing Malcolm Butler, who they've been linked to, as well as Zach Fulton. So I think the Texans improve their defense by signing 2 key players. The Indianapolis Colts, I believe, will improve their running game by signing Deion Lewis and Adrian Peterson. Signing Adrian Peterson would be a very Colts move, and that has Colts written all over it, in my opinion. Jacksonville Jaguars, I believe, will make an upgrade at receiver and sign Jordan Matthews who was traded from the Eagles to the Bills last summer, and he would be a nice fit with the Jags. The Tennessee Titans, I think, will sign Sammy Watkins, who was traded from the Bills to the Rams last summer, and now is a free agent. Watkins would be a nice target for Marcus Mariota. The Denver Broncos, I have signing Case Keenum, as they will miss out on Kirk Cousins as well. The Chiefs, I believe, will sign Star Lutueli to improve their defensive line, and E.J. Gaines and Eric Reed to improve their secondary. The Los Angeles Chargers, I think, will trade for Jawan James to improve their offensive line, and unless James gets cut by the Dolphins, maybe the Chargers sign him in free agency, but we'll see. And I think they'll re-sign Trey Boston. The Oakland Raiders, I have them signing Doug Martin. I've heard that he's met with John Gruden. And I also have them signing Tremaine Johnson. I think the Cowboys will sign Ndamukong Suh and find a way to do that by clearing cap room. That would be very Cowboys of them to sign Suh. And I also think they'll pick up Morgan Burnett. I think the Giants will improve their offensive line by signing Andrew Norwell and re-signing Justin Pugh. I don't feel great about the Pugh re-signing, possibly, but Norwell feels like a done deal to me because Norwell knows Giants GM Dave Gettleman well, as Gettleman had Norwell with the Panthers. Philadelphia Eagles, there's so many rumors about them trading Nick Foles. My prediction is that they do not trade Nick Foles. For the reason being is that they're not sure whether Carson Wentz will be ready in time or not. And so there's that reasoning for them not trading Foles. I think the Washington Redskins will sign Muhammad Wilkerson. I've heard Wilkerson linked to the Redskins a lot, and that would be a nice signing for them to improve their defensive line. The Chicago Bears, I have signing Austin Seferian-Jenkins. I think that would be a nice signing for the Bears. And he had a nice year on the Jets last year with journeyman Josh McCown throwing to him. And Seferian-Jenkins would give young quarterback Mitch Trubisky a nice weapon. I think the Lions will sign Sheldon Richardson. I've heard Richardson linked to the Lions as the Lions look to improve their defensive line. I think the Green Bay Packers will sign Maurice Claiborne, who is a free agent and would be a nice fit in that Packers secondary after potentially losing Morgan Burnett. Here we go. The Minnesota Vikings will sign Kirk Cousins. That's my prediction, and that's what I think is going to happen. I think Cousins wants to go to a winning team, a team that's close to contending for a Super Bowl. And I think the Vikings are an average quarterback away from that. Although Case Keenum had a great year last year, but is he really that good? I think the Vikings want to sign Cousins, and as much as they have a ton of cap room and they have a ton of good role players, Adam Thielen had a breakout year at receiver, and they have a great set of running backs, and they have Dalvin Cook coming back. Don't forget about Cook, who was outstanding before he got hurt. And I think if the Vikings signed Cousins, they would make them co-favorites with the Philadelphia Eagles to come out of the NFC. I think the Falcons re-signed Dontari Poe, who was a great player for them on defense. I have the Carolina Panthers signing Tavon Austin to improve their wide receiver corps after trading away Kelvin Benjamin and others. So Austin would be a great signing, although they did trade for Torrey Smith from the Philadelphia Eagles the other day. The New Orleans Saints, I think, will re-sign Drew Brees to a big deal from a numbers perspective. And I think they'll bring back Brees' old friend, Jimmy Graham. I think that would be a fun story if Graham went back to New Orleans. I believe that the Tampa Bay Bucks will sign Josh Sidden to improve their offensive line. The Arizona Cardinals, my prediction on them is that they take a flyer on Teddy Bridgewater. I think that would be interesting, as the Cardinals are also in the mix for Kirk Cousins. I think the Rams, after trading for Aqib Talib and trading out other guys to clear cap room, I think they'll extend Aaron Donald, which would be an excellent move and a move that they have to make. The San Francisco 49ers, I believe, will re-sign Carlos Hyde and sign Jeremy Maclin in free agency. And the Seattle Seahawks, my prediction for them, as they look to continue to demolish what was once called the Legion of Boom. This is probably my boldest prediction yet on this podcast, this particular podcast. I think either Earl Thomas and or Cam Chancellor is traded or released. It's just a gut feeling I have. We'll see. And I think they might do that after releasing Michael Bennett or trading away Michael Bennett and releasing Richard Sherman. And before I go, I want to remind you guys again, tomorrow is a strictly NCAA tournament preview and predictions podcast. I'll go round by round, picking every game and eventually revealing my national championship pick. I hope you guys have a nice